Rick?
It's going great. Thanks for the opportunity. It's not letting me do my video. I got added as a panelist, but it didn't.
Wait, give me 1 second. All right, I think that should happen for you now. I just made you a co-host. All right, there you go.
Perfect. So yeah, what I'll do is I'm gonna just kind of do a very quick high-level review of what we do, and then I'll just turn it over to Travis to jump in, just as a quick refresher. Let me share here. All right, can you see my screen?
I can.
Perfect. So yeah, just a quick refresher. My name is Rick Cotton. I'm the CEO. I lead our brokerage relationships and also handle marketing. So that's kind of my area of expertise. We'll turn it over to Travis in a second, and he really is in charge of our deals and is kind of the expert on doing these types of transactions. Vince is at a property today, but he's kind of the account manager and can help steer you in the right direction on any questions that you've got. Quick reminder, Homely, what we really do is help real estate agents to find perfect solutions to imperfect situations. Distressed properties are always challenging. There's a lot of situations that come with that, and our job is to make it as easy as possible for you all and for our investor partners. As we discussed last time, we are a marketplace, so we're not just trying to wholesale properties. We want to create new revenue streams for brokers. We want to remove the sales obstacles that you all will face with these types of properties, which is liens, cash for keys, anything that makes it challenging. And then we want to give a renovation ready property to our investors. So their crews can show up day one and they can do what they do best, which is reimagining the property and handling the fix and flip. How we add benefit to you all is really, we try to help improve client retention. So we do see a high percentage of these deals fall out. We can improve the closing certainty. We help maintain home equity. We do increase commissions. The average commission, the average agent makes an extra 30K of commission with our transactions, which we went over last time. Remove the headaches. Our goal is to save time. There's no showings. No need to do unqualified offer review. We save money. There's no need to market or promote the property. We add protections. Our goal is to help make these close and to eliminate the evil investor. We add coverage. We have 1,000+ investors in across Southern California to promote and market these properties to. And then we help package them, give you, unlimited purchasing power. We can buy as many of these as you want, and we increase the volume. So, didn't want to go too deep in reviewing those, but wanted to make sure we were on track there. And then in terms of just a quick reminder that most of the people need cash offers. So we have distressed houses and we have distressed situations. For many people, they need to move quickly and they just don't have the time to list it on the MLS. So just understanding that, really getting into the circumstances, which Travis will help review, but, to understand that we are trying to add a service to people who are in need. And then the target cash properties, right? So these are, investors are really looking for more turnkey properties given kind of the current market. So anything that adds risk is generally going to be a harder sell. So it is 500 to 750K in price, under 2,000 square feet, cosmetic upgrades, solid location, no major value killers like being next to commercial, urban, suburban areas, and you've got the listing. So with that, I will turn this over to Travis to take it from here.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, so what we're going to go over today really is just how you should look at these types of properties when you're going into a listing appointment. The process that you should have should be very, very different for these types of properties than your standard listing appointment. So we're just going to go over kind of the different phases. Number one is assess. Two, kind of the preparation. So what you need to bring to the appointment to make sure that you're prepared for kind of all the scenarios that can happen in these. One thing I will say is that in the preparation phase and the assessment phase, these are absolutely critical in our world. The agents that I've found to be successful in these types of properties really nail these two and really know what they're going to do in the situation. Because in these meetings, you actually have to gather a lot of the information that you need to make the close in the meeting. And if you're not properly prepared to go down a couple different paths, then you could find yourself leaving without having an opportunity for the hard close and leaving the door open for somebody, another agent or investor to close before you can get back in the door. Go over presenting a solution, overcoming objections, and of course, most importantly, the close. Cool. So first, assessing. So the goal here really is to assess the property condition, capture the challenges of the property, and make sure that you kind of have a gauge of how aware the seller is of what their issues are. And obviously you guys have been in this business, a long time. Seller expectations can vary wildly. And so just kind of getting that understanding before you get in the door. So here's some of the questions that you should be answering or asking. When was the house last updated or remodeled? Does the house need repairs or maintenance? And usually, sellers tend to be pretty accurate with this stuff. They usually have a pretty good idea if the house needs repairs or maintenance. Any liens or binding contracts like solar. What do you feel the property is worth? So here, we're trying to determine what do they actually think of the property versus where we feel the actual value is. Do you occupy the house or are you renting it? If rental, what are the terms and lease amount? So again, in this funnel, a lot of times you'll deal with rental owners that might have had a bad actor in terms of a renter, or they're just tired, or somebody passed away and the family took over the rental portfolio and they don't know what to do with it. So asking those questions are important, because if we need to do cash for keys or anything like that, we should know that going in. Is anyone else part owner of the property? Again, a lot of times we deal with weird situations. And so it's just good to cover your bases in terms of these situations. Go ahead, Rick. Okay. Seller questions. So these are almost in this world more important than the prior. So the goal is you need to know their story and really identify their true needs, defining the seller timing and motivation, and seeing they're open to a cash offer. So why are you selling? Learning the pain points. Again, we talk about finding the pain. Usually in these properties, there's some sort of pain point. And if you do not get to that pain point, your chances of success are pretty low. When do you want to move? Why is time frame important? What's the most important to you when you decide to sell? Price or terms? This is an important question. And this is a question so many times when I talk to agents, they don't actually know this, and they should, because in many of these situations, the price is not the most important thing. It might be that they need to move out in 2 weeks. It might be some other situation where, I need you to get my tenant out. I need these liens off my books. And so many times I see that agents come in only focused on the price, when a lot of times these people just plain need help and they're asking for help with terms. And so it's just important, remember, just not coming in and selling them on what you want to sell them, but selling them on how they want to be sold. And a lot of times in this business, it's about terms. Would you be open to an as-is cash offer with a quick close if it met your needs? So again, if I get a yes on a lot of the other questions, yes, I have deferred maintenance. Yes, I need to get out soon. Yes, I've got a lot of problems. Then you're kind of using this as a trial close, so that you're going into the appointment knowing that this is a possible option. And how can we help you the most? Again, this question is just something that you should be peppering in almost every 10 questions. It's just, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? Now, what I will say is, I've dealt with a lot of agents, and one of my clients was the former CEO of Keller Williams. His name is Chris Heller. If you guys have ever run into him before, but his team was absolutely excellent at this. They would have a full understanding of what the property situation was, what the property was like, and they would call me and they would figure out they would really narrow down their options in terms of what they think a cash offer would look like, what type of help they need, and they would have a very robust plan going into the first listing appointment. And they won, I want to say like 99% of their listings, because they nailed this part. So again, if there's any inkling of a distressed property, really focus on getting the preparation right. And we're always available, via phone, email, text, whatever it is, to help strategize going in. Because again, if you're buttoned up going into this appointment, just your odds for success are just going to be so much higher. All right, Rick, go ahead. So again, really what we're trying to determine is this a list on the MLS or a cash offer? One thing I do want to say is, I want to thank the team. We have gotten a good amount of leads. And really, this is a lot of the process that we do on our initial discussion, because some of these property leads that we've received are definitely listed on the MLS. They're not truly distressed. There's not truly enough damage. And it's just better for them to go on the MLS and get the highest price. And then I've seen some definite properties that needed the cash offer because it truly was non-financeable, was truly the terms was important. They needed to get out now, et cetera, et cetera. All right, cool. Let's keep going. So cash offer prep. So, once we've gathered the proper information, these are the items that you should be bringing in to the appointment. So this is, to me, the pre-listing checklist is listing agreement. So again, and what I would highly recommend is so many times agents will bring the listing agreement with the price filled out. In a distressed property situation, you have to do a bit of improv. You cannot have the price already set, because you're going to have a lot of discussions with the seller about truly what their value is, going through the home, assessing damage, so again, coming in with everything pre-populated is not the way to go here. MLS exclusionary form. So again, if they're going to go the route of the Homely marketplace, getting that MLS exclusionary form ready to go. Homely RPA. Now, again, I'm going to use Chris Heller's team as a beacon of what I think should be done here. A lot of times they would bring the offer with them, and they would use that either as to get the offer done right then and there, or they would just say, hey, I've already done work for you. I have an offer for you. Again, the RPA should not have the price in, and you should call us to verify while you're in the in-home appointment, and we'll go over that. But having that available is also an option. Having a net sheet with the different options, and we'll go through that in option close. Repair sheets. So we will provide some of those after this training, but basically having a document that you can go through the repairs. A laptop I would recommend to value the home with the client. Camera phone, so that you can take pictures of the damage and the different things that are going on the interior. And then the Homely offer and Homely RPA, same thing, but then Homely valuation. So again, we can provide documentation to give a very robust valuation of the property from our perspective that has a lot of data. And so if you have a detail-oriented seller or somebody that likes to have lots of information, I'd highly recommend that you get that going into the appointment. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so this is kind of just, to me, the sales process. And again, a lot of you guys are professional sellers, so some of this is, easy, but, just number one, listen and take interest. Number two, walk the property with the seller. Three, value the property with the client. Four is reviewing the options. Five is the net sheet review. Number six would be signing forms. Number seven is the signing an RPA if possible. And then number eight, making sure that you're just getting lots of videos and photos of the exterior and interior so that we can get a full view of the property. All right, we can keep going. So the open. So, I've been on a lot of these appointments, both as an individual investor and as kind of a helper to an agent that just wanted to take me or somebody on my team. And one thing is just to be very clear on these types of situations, there is no room for being fuzzy. You have to be very open and honest with your approach. But, first off, always is, genuine interest and build rapport. So for example, I went to a home where I was competing against, I think, 12 investors. And one, I always like to ask afterwards, why did you pick me? And one of the things that the seller said is, well, you actually listened to our story about our mother who had passed, and you were the only one that asked what her name was. And so just those simple little things where, like, if there's people in pain or there's pain points and you can just actually care, and it shouldn't be acting. I mean, this is something that you should just care about, is that, the seller and their situation. So just, taking a genuine interest in their pain points, finding the pain. If there's, things going on with their life, just continue to ask questions and get to know them. Again, one thing to remember is just, it's not about the property, it's about the seller. It's not about the property, it's about the seller, especially in these situations. So, then asking property questions and seller questions to assess seller needs. So if you missed anything on the phone before you got there, here's your opportunity. Now explaining, so being honest and direct. So, one thing that I used to do, at least from the investor seat, was I would say, hey, I buy one out of every 10 properties I see. I completely understand, if we're not going to put a deal together here, but one thing that I want to make sure that you understand is that I have a lot of knowledge in the space, and I'm happy to give it to you for free. Even if you pick somebody else, I'm happy to, review contracts. I'm happy to help you with language. So anything that you need, even if you don't choose me, I'm happy to help. So just again, that honest and direct approach of, hey, I'm an information source, I think is really helpful, especially in this area, because a lot of your competition, and especially in the agent space, they're just going to come and they're just going to give a price and they're going to walk out the door. And so if you can come in and be honest and direct and be an source of information, you can find that, not only will you get the listing, even if you lost it and something goes wrong, they will come back to you, which is how I've actually won a lot of properties, because I've given information and then they say, hey, what you told me actually happened. Is it cool if you still purchase the property? And to which I say, great, no problem. And I totally understand that you went a different way, not a big deal. So reviewing the stress marketplace, again, here you just want to be really focused on kind of explaining to them how this process is different. And we'll get into this, discussing contingencies in depth, explaining potential risks, and then, just take the time to know the seller and the situation. So again, just really digging in deep into each of these spots. Again, as I mentioned on our last training, if your listing appointment's 3 hours, you probably are getting the deal. If your listing appointment's 10 minutes, you're probably not. Let's keep going. So, renovation walk. So, one thing I want to mention before I dig into this, is in the explanation phase, I really do think it's important that you go through an RPA, specifically contingencies, so that they understand that process. I've won so many listings and purchases by explaining to people that contingency, that the purchase price means absolutely nothing, especially in this space. So again, in our space, so many investors, they use the contingencies as a weapon to change the pricing at the very last second. So getting into the contingencies is important. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I just wanted to make sure I highlight that multiple times in this discussion. So this is what we call the renovation walk. So, once I've heard their story, once I've found the pain, once I understand their situation and I understand, okay, our price or terms more important, I'm going to jump into the renovation walk. Now, why this is so important and where so many agents and investors fall down here is they'll walk into a property that's just a complete disaster. And they will say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, your price is very low because your property is a complete disaster. And the seller goes, I don't like you. You're trying to screw me. I want you out of my house. They're thinking that. They won't say it, but by the end, you won't come out with a listing appointment because you are the messenger and they have essentially shot you. So this technique we found is a very good way to make it so that you're creating a third-party avatar that they can blame for all the things that you're going to tell them. And so that's an incredibly important point, and you have to hit it home. The other bit of psychology, which is very important here, is they now go from the seller seat to the buyer seat. So again, the old sales saying, a man sold against his will is of the same opinion still. But if you put their brain in the mind of the buyer, they start to actually bash their own property for you. So again, there's a little bits of psychology there, but very important. So again, the first step is introducing the HGTV generation. Grew up viewing properties perfectly designed, freshly renovated properties. Again, I'm of this generation, so it was always funny when I was doing this because I was basically bashing myself, but I would even be self-deprecating. Hey, I don't know how to pick up a hammer. I can't change a tire. I don't know how to do these things. So I want the property to be ready to go, right? And so that's what you're saying is, hey, these sellers, they need the property ready to go. They're not going to fix anything. They're not handy. They want it all done. So when you're walking through the property, you're saying, hey, what does this HGTV generation, what would they like? So what you're going to do is you would take your renovation sheet, which should say, kitchen, bathroom, living room, and it should have a blank. And you walk through and you say, hey, I love the fact that your kitchen has an electric stove from the 1960s. And I love the fact that, your cabinets are 50 years old. That's fantastic. But unfortunately, the HGTV generation, they want shaker cabinets. They want new appliances. They want new floor. They want scrape ceiling. So how much do you feel like it would take to do all that work? And, you'll be surprised. They'll actually give you a pretty relatively good number in the 20, 30,000 range. You say, great, you mark that down. And, as you're going through, if you see any specific damage, like let's say there's a hole in the ceiling, you don't go, hey, what's that hole in the ceiling? You just say, hey, what's this? Right? Let them explain it to you. Let them explain the situation. Because again, you don't want to put yourself in the position of I'm telling you how bad your house is. You want them to do it for you. So you just say, hey, what's that right there? Oh, we had a roof leak. And some of the water seeped through and it caused that hole. Okay, great. I'm going to mark that down. And again, don't speak well or poorly of the situation. Again, you're just marking it down. You're being as neutral as you can possibly be. So, again, same thing. Okay, great. Oh, so you have that hole. So what do you feel like it would cost to fix that? Okay, they'll give you a number. Oh, I think it's going to be 3,000. Okay, great. Let me write that down. So again, as you just continue through this process, you're going to go through the entire interior of the house and the entire exterior. Anything that you feel is not HGTV ready, because again, that's what you set the definition of, is you're going to point it out. So even things like landscaping, a fence might be out of whack, whatever it may be. Hey, this landscaping, do you feel like this HGTV generation would be okay with this? And you'll be surprised by, as you continue to go through, the seller say, no, they won't. And it's funny, I've done enough of these now. Well, they'll actually start to get mad at this pretend avatar that we've created. And they go, oh man, these youngsters, they don't know how to do anything. And you go, oh yeah, I know. It's just, gosh darn it. And then you just keep going through the process. And it actually starts to become more of a bonding experience for you and the seller versus them being pissed at you that you're bashing their property. Again, so then when you're done, you're going to sit down. What I would suggest here is if they have a calculator or a phone, that they do the math with you. Anytime I do math, I like to make my client do the math with me, because it's them being engaged and doing it with you. So again, if they don't have a calculator, have them borrow yours or sit right next to them and say, hey, why don't we do the math together? You're going to capture all those reno estimates, and then, hopefully what you're going to come up with is a relatively accurate number, 60, 70, 80, 100,000, whatever the property requires. And you say, okay, great. So, we think it's going to cost about 100,000. Does that sound about right? And they go, yes. Okay, great. I'm going to write that down. Now you have that piece of information now, and you're going to put that in your pocket and bring that up later for our net sheets and our close. And then if they are thinking about, renovating themselves, which again, I have yet to see that situation work out well for anybody, unless if they were a licensed contractor in a previous life. I would just say, it's very important for them to understand that somebody that works in this space is going to be about half as expensive and about twice as fast. So if I quote something at 60,000 and 3 months of renovation, they're probably going to be at about 120,000 and 6 months at least. Usually much worse. All right, we can keep going. Okay, so comp review. So again, this is where I think there's a very, very big difference in terms of your preparation and your process for a normal retail listing versus a distressed listing. Normally in a retail listing, an agent would come in and say, hey, I took a market summary of the area. It's going to be the average price per square foot. I already put the price in the listing agreement. This is what I think we should sell it for. And they go. Here, what I suggest is that you're going to value the property with the seller right then and there, because the objection you have to hit in the mouth is, well, I saw that my property is worth X on Zillow. Okay. There's a reason why Zillow got out of the home buying business and lost $500,000. It's because or $500 million, I think, is because they believe their own algorithm. And unfortunately, their algorithm doesn't take into consideration the interior, and the interior for distressed property is very important. So again, what you're actually doing is you're hitting their objection for what they see on Redfin or Zillow, and you're hitting them in the face with it. And you're going to use actually their programs with them to get over that objection. So again, if the seller's estimate of their home value is high, what you want to do is you want to take out your laptop. Again, I highly suggest that you say, let me come around to the side of the table with you. I've actually used that coming around the side of the table close on like big executives for like $30 million deals. And it's worked beautifully. If you're on their side of the table working with them, Now it's not me and you, it's we, and how about we find a situation? So again, sitting next to them, let's open Redfin or Zillow. What program do you use? And let's walk through the comps. I do have a training that we can go through where we'll dig into this process much deeper. But the general gist is that I'm looking at the comps in Redfin. So let's say that they have a house, and in Redfin or Zillow, it says it's worth $500,000. And you say, okay, let's look at some comps. And you see, $500,000 houses, and you look through the interior pictures, and all you have to just say is, do you feel like an HGTV person would prefer this house or this house? The house that you're looking at may look like this, pristine and brand new. And then they look around at their current house and there's a hole in the ceiling, avocado lime green carpet, a hole in the wall, whatever the problems are. And they will start to get, you don't have to say, anything super negative. You just say, what do you think's better or worse? Better or worse? And if you continue to do that process with homes that have actually, deferred maintenance that match their home, and brand new homes, they'll start to actually wean themselves into the right answer. But again, not bashing, not being judgmental. Do you think this is better or worse? Better or worse? Better or worse? And by the time you get done with that process, again, I did one of these where I had a woman that was pretty difficult. She needed to move to Arkansas, and her house was pretty bashed. And, she said, oh yeah, I think this property is going to be worth $700,000 because she saw that on Redfin. So we opened the comps, and the interior of her house matched the $500,000 comps. But by the end, she said, thank you for this education. You're an angel. I appreciate this so much. I had no idea. And again, it was just because she was going off of Zillow. She didn't know any better. And she would have been sitting on the market for 6 months to a year and probably fired a couple agents in the process. So again, just sitting down and taking the time here is very, very important. All right, we can keep going. Okay. Evil investors. So we talk about this, and again, it's probably not something that you see every day, but in our world, this is pretty much all we see. Most of the investors out there that are in our space are what's called MLS offer writers. So what they will do is they will write offers on 10 properties on the MLS per day, or 20. They just got somebody that's just pumping out offers. They're going to give a quick call to the agent. They're going to find out what price can tie it up at, and then they're just going to tie it up. They're going to do that for 20 properties, right? Then they're going to take those 20 properties and they're going to run the contingencies to the limit. So let's say they say, okay, I want a 14-day contingency period. So they're going to take all of those to 13 days. At day 13, they're going to say, great, all of these properties now, I want a $100,000 price reduction on all of them. And then what will happen is about 95% of those will fall out, but then 5% will come through because somebody will just say, well, you've got me, or you've strung me out so long that I have to do it, or I'm just going to take it, or whatever it may be. And now they've purchased one property. So I had an example of an appointment where we were going up against, I think around 9 investors, and it was myself. And they said, when would you like to come? And I said, first. Normally, when you do a sales presentation, you want to be last. At least that's been my modus operandi. But in this business, I like to be first. And I'll tell you why. Is because if I can set myself as the moral high ground on the first appointment, they are now going to look at every single person speaking to them through that lens. And if they don't mention the things that you mentioned, they will not trust them, as they shouldn't. So what I mean by that is when I sit down and I go through contingencies and the contract line by line so that they fully understand the contract and contingencies. So I say, I explain to them, look, you're going to get a lot of offers, right? But the offer means zero, nothing. It just might, you could put $3 trillion on the top line. It does not matter. Until these contingencies are removed, this is not real. And that includes with an offer with me, by the way. Again, so I just want them to be very, very clear. So then you explain to them, okay, this is how contingencies work. When the contingency is removed, then the deposit is hard. Now we know we have a deal. So you're getting mailers from, Zillow that they want to buy your house for a bunch of money. Well, that they're going to come in and they're going to change that offer once they see this property, right? So what ends up happening is if you teach them about contingencies, if you teach them about renegotiation, I always tell them too, if you go with another offer besides me, please put in there, will not renegotiate in escrow. That does a couple things for me. Number one, it sets the moral high ground so that if somebody doesn't bring up these things again, as I mentioned, they don't trust. But number two is if there's offers that I'm going up against that aren't real, it helps the seller actually weed them out. And, you know, again, for you guys as well, if you decide to take a property and put it on the MLS, same thing. An investor should be putting, will not renegotiate an escrow, because if they don't put that, that's their plan. I can promise you. Okay. So again, discussing the distressed property marketplace, discussing bad actors, discussing the risks, discussing their fiduciary duty, your fiduciary duty as a risk protector, not only just looking for the highest price, are all very important parts of this process. And it will really help you against your competition, because if your message is, you know, I'm an expert in this space, Rise Realty has a partnership with a cash investor, I know what's going on, and you bring up all these things, their competition is not, it's going to make you look that much better and make the chances of you being successful much, much higher. And again, even if you aren't successful, a lot of times you'll have clients come back because they go, oh, I went with somebody else, and exactly what you told me happened. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. Can I do business with you still? And the answer is yes. Cool. We can keep going. So presenting solutions. So again, you know, whenever you are doing a distress close, it should be an option close. We will provide some seller net sheets for you. Also, if you ever work a deal with us, we can have escrow provide these so that you're prepared. Again, one thing I will say is though, is you want to actually fill these out in the appointment, because you're going to do the walkthrough. You're going to see the property, the renovations needed. So you can't fill this out before. So you have to fill it out to the best you can prior, but then there's stuff that you're going to have as you go in. So again, when you're speaking to them, you're saying, hey, do you want to list on the MLS? Do you want to go with, you know, Homely Marketplace? Or do you want to try to fix it yourself? Again, I wouldn't bring that up unless if they brought it up, because usually it just muddies the waters. And then, you know, once you go through each of these scenarios, they will understand, right? Hey, if you're going on the MLS, there might be 50 offers. We might fall out 2 or 3 times in a declining market. You might lose money. Here's all the things that can happen. With, you know, Homely, it's more just like CarMax. We can just go on, get a deal done. We don't have the risk of falling out. We don't have the risk of going through a declining market. So again, and just speaking to them honestly, and like I said, I'll use Chris Heller here as the example. When he did this process where he showed a net seat of selling to us cash, putting it on the MLS, about 80% of the people went with just selling cash because they just wanted to be done. They understood the risk that if they went through a lot of different scenarios on the MLS, they might fall out, they might get sued, all those different things. So again, fill out the net sheet with them. So using that renovation number, using any numbers. And what I would recommend here is, let's say you get stuck in the appointment. We actually used to do this actually as investors too, is I would go to the car once I was done with the appointment. I would call, you know, we'd call it the quarterback. We'd call somebody and we would actually run through the math, run through the valuation, make sure that everything was tight. So I just tell a seller, hey, I'm going to go to my car for a second. I'm going to do some math. I'm going to talk to, you know, my people in the office, make sure that everything is correct. And then I would come back in and present everything. So that way it was accurate. They knew what was going on. And again, what I found is that it actually makes the seller feel more comfortable with you, that you're actually doing some homework and making sure that you're accurate. Another thing I've had people do is actually call me in the meeting and just say, hey, I need help. You know, I'm here with the seller. Here's what's going on. What's your opinion? And we actually talk it out on the phone, which is also fine as well. So again, just remember, you're not on an island on these listing appointments. If you need help or assistance, it's always helpful. All right, we can keep going. So overcoming objections. So these are some of the frequently asked questions I get or agents get when they're coming in. Why is my property not the Zillow price? So again, that's why I said, like, it's just good to be prepared for this objection prior to going into the meeting, because you know it's going to happen. I received a high cash offer in the mail. So this is, you know, kind of that Zillow process of, I'm going to send you an offer. I have no idea what's going on in your home. I'm going to go tour the home based on, you're going to invite me to your home based on this fake offer. And then I'm going to change it to the real offer once I'm in the house. So just explain to them that's the process. I want to wait. So in our business, this is probably the number one objection we get, which is just, I want to wait. And usually, honestly, it's because the seller is depressed or overwhelmed, or they don't know what to do. So when I talk about just saying, how can I help you over and over and over again? So many times it's here. It's just, you have an overwhelmed person, or they just don't know what to do and they just need help. The ways we've helped people have ranged from getting like random cars off their property, to helping them get a job, to finding a rental for them, to getting tenants out, to dealing with their relatives that they don't want to talk to. So again, there could be a lot of answers here, but just understanding if they want to wait, making sure that they're not waiting for no reason, because so many times, a lot of the things that they're waiting for, it might be just like an additional answer, can actually be handled in an escrow. And the what people often try to do is hire a lawyer for money, where they could just find out in escrow the same exact answers to the questions for less. So I would just really, again, a lot of times just getting into escrow is the best fix. I want to fix it myself. So again, that's just one of these things where people with no contracting experience, and they don't even have cash, sometimes want to renovate the property themselves. Almost every time I see a person do this, they either can't finish, and so they get halfway done, which adds no value to their property, and then they try to sell it and they just lost out on a bunch of money. Or they actually end up getting it done, but it costs double or three times the amount. It took like a year, and the property declined during that time, and they actually end up with the same net or worse for all that work. Undefined issue, and I can't sign. So again, just patiently ask questions. Just remember, a lot of times these people are just super vulnerable, and you just have to be really, really patient and just continue to ask questions until they open up to you. All right. Cool. So closing versus competition. So again, setting the bar, always try to go into first when you're meeting with distressed sellers. Again, you want to set yourself as the helpful, brand yourself as the helpful person, the person with the knowledge, and the advisor. You can do that, and you can be first. So many times they will just look at everybody else through a negative lens, and you can get that deal done. Educating on evil investors. So again, really explaining to them how the distress process is different. Letting them know there's a lot of people that write offers that don't have money, letting them know that there's a lot of people that are going to just give you any number you want at the beginning and have no intention of keeping it. Explaining that process to them is very, very important, because sellers don't know. Leveraging expertise. So again, leading with education. You have a partnership with us in your brokerage. I mean, that's something that you should be speaking to. I've seen a lot of our agent partners use that as basically a leverage point to just say, hey, like, don't you want to deal with somebody that's an expert, or do you want to deal with somebody that's never done this before? And again, we have the same thing where we will consult regardless of whether we get the deal or not. And I highly suggest you make the same offer to those sellers. Hey, even if you don't go with me, I'm happy to help you in any way that I possibly can, whether that helps, making sure that your other offer is legal, that you're protected, all those things. Please come to me anytime. Cool. All right. So here's the contact information. Again, if you have a deal, I think your fastest point of contact is Vince. So just send us an address and we'll get back to you and we'll discuss things, or you can reach out to me and we'll get back to you quickly. Yeah, so that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I hope that was helpful to everybody.
I think it was really helpful. So I think, the benefit of this, because, I guess what could everybody be thinking right now? Well, I'm going on a listing appointment. For one, I think a lot of this applies to every listing appointment, especially valuing the home inside there, because that is a challenge, whether it's a fully renovated home, something that's, half renovated, whatever, is getting the seller to the correct market price, and we all know which direction our local market is headed. But how can you use this or the relationship we have with Homely to generate more business? And, I think it's a lot of driving for dollars. If you're not familiar with that, it's, we're driving around all day and you see this home that we pass by all the time, and weeds are window height and looks, to be in disarray, that's the type of property you probably want to be reaching out to. It's not on the market. You could have a lead in with having this relationship in place that you have, a solid investor buyer to try and work this deal with. They could be in any one of these situations that Travis just talked about: bad tenants, disputes with family. There could be title issues. There could be all kinds of things that are kind of preventing them from selling. And maybe they're not moving forward with trying to rectify them because they are in a vulnerable position, mentally, where it's just overwhelming to try and deal with this whole thing. So is that something you experience, or where would you suggest maybe using this relationship to go and generate business without really having to spend a lot of money? This is just a little bit, this is time.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I know, one of the benefits of being in my seat is I deal with a lot of the top agents in San Diego and elsewhere. There's a gentleman, Reeves, who, what he does is he uses the cash offer to leverage listings. So what he does is he goes around, he'll door knock or mailer and just say, hey, do you want a cash offer on your home? And anybody that says yes, he now knows that they're looking to sell, whether or not a cash offer actually fits for them at all. He just uses it as a way just to get his foot in the door and to say, oh, well, if they're at least interested in a cash offer, I know that they're thinking about selling. I think another good approach, if we're just talking about driving for dollars, is Property Radar has a system where you can check notice of defaults based off of where you are. So I would have people that would go around. For example, there was a doctor that came out of Mexico that worked for Keller Williams. His first year, all he did was he would go around to NODs and he would bring them a cake. And he would just say, hey, wouldn't bring up the NOD. He knew it was an NOD because, again, and we'll talk about this when we talk about NOD prospecting, because the last thing an NOD person wants to hear is, hey, you're losing your house. You want to sell? So he would just say, hey, I'm a realtor. I'm an expert in the area. I also have a back office that deals with, notice of defaults or different things. If you know anybody that has that, here's a cake. Guy got 34 listings in 1 year by just doing that. So again, using the cash offer is just all it's going to do is add credibility to what you're doing, even if it has nothing to do with us. But the NOD funnel is an interesting one, just because what other funnel is there where that 95% of the people in that funnel will not own that house in the next 6 months?
Yeah.
Not many, if any. And then, again, you can do the visual thing where, hey, it just looks bad. So again, later we'll have we can do more trainings on like how to source this data, how to prospect in those different methods. But yeah, I mean, Travis, you're absolutely right. Like, it's just a leverage point, and it's just all it's going to do is add credibility. And like I said, a lot of times it can expose somebody that wants to sell that maybe you wouldn't have known they wanted to sell until you brought this up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the points that you touched on with, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? Years back when we had all the short sales in the business, that's really you had to approach them as an advocate, of how am I going to help you get out of this situation? And I think it's no different with, obviously that's a distress sell as well, even if it was strategic. But, I think that, how to approach someone in this kind of situation is very, very similar to anybody that's got distressed property. Is you have to come at it as an advocate and not as you have to sell right now, so.
Yep. Yeah. That's another example of they'll shoot the messenger.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. Well, if there are no questions, I mean, you can throw them in the chat. Chat is open. But otherwise, yeah, go out there. I mean, you have a partner on the back end here that has deep pockets, can buy lots of stuff. And if you need to leverage that to go and get, listings and set appointments and open up conversations, use it. That's why this partnership is here. And, even if Homely doesn't buy it, the worst thing that could happen is you might get a listing. So
Yeah, the worst thing.
That's the worst thing. So,
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for having us. And again, if anybody has any questions or they just want to just talk shop, my phone door is always open. So please reach out.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. All right. We'll see you guys. Have a good week.